And I've got top of the hour. Well, so welcome everybody to our 21st installment of Virtual Thursday. Today we are going to cover incident reporting, the incident module, doing a report start to finish. And we're going to go through it. I know it's a very commonly used module, and many of you are probably experts in it already, but we'll talk about a few of the nuances and some of the best practices as we go through today. So again, welcome. That's me. I'm Tom Lewis. I'm the lead trainer with emergency reporting and been with emergency reporting since 2004 and a trainer since 2011 and kind of becoming a veteran here with these virtual Thursdays and having a lot of fun. So I'm going to launch a poll. Those of you that have been with us in the past are familiar with this. We've got a few questions to ask you today. They go by really fast, but my personal curiosity, I always like to see where people are across the country, where they're joining us from. So first question is, what time zone are you in? We'll keep that poll open for another 20 seconds. Almost everybody's voted. All right, and 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, last shot to vote. All right. Looks like we've got a lot on the East Coast today. Almost half are joining us from the Eastern time zone, so thank you. I hope those of you joining us are at least starting to get a break in that weather. I know it's been very, very chilly in the southeast and then now in the northeast, so I hope you're staying safe and staying warm out there. All right. Well, as always, we go through a quick review of some training opportunities each session, and we also take this time to welcome new customers on board. So we'll go ahead and do that right away. And we've got our regional training conferences, of which we completed our very first one in the new format a couple weeks ago in Olympia, Washington, at the South Bay Fire Department. They were fantastic hosts there, and the conference went really, really well. We also do on-site training for each department, or I should say any department that would like us to come out on site. This is a picture of Dale and I at Anniston, Alabama, doing an on-site training for their department. Again, those are customized specifically to the needs of individual departments. And then, of course, we have online training similar to the virtual Thursdays that we do, but specific to your organization and your agency. We can coordinate those as well. In fact, just recently finished up doing one with some departments, Indian Beach, Salter Path out in North Carolina. Had 2 full days of some online training that went really well. Got a lot accomplished. So there's multiple ways that we can help you and give you additional training. And all of these are unique in what they provide, but each one can be fit to just about any budget that you have out there. So I'll probably put out, as we get through, we've got another few questions to see if you're interested in any of these, but we'll do that momentarily. This is the emergency reporting experience. That's that 3-day regional training conference I mentioned to you. And it is 3 days on site, host department. Day 1 is essentials. Day 2 is what we call integration. Day 3 is our lead ER or leader. And how it breaks down is right here. And I know it's small font, so I'm going to go to the next few slides where it breaks it down day by day. But essentially, day 1 gives you a concise overview of our entire system. We focus on best practices and hit the highlights and key functionality of each module, but we go in depth with both incidents and training. It is the foundation for the next 2 days, this day 1 essentials. Day 2, we use an agile process, and the entire day 2 is driven by the students' needs. In other words, you come to that conference and you have specific needs in mind as far as what you want to get out of the system. Instead of us going, in a canned presentation module by module, it is driven by your user stories, your essentially questions you have about the system. We plug it into the various modules and hit just what the students want that day. And that also was very successful and getting through, because typically if one participant has a question, often another participant has the same one, and we're addressing multiple needs at once, and it's really a lot of fun, a lot of interaction. Then our very last day is what we call the lead ER. We cover very much in depth the administration module. We talk about analytics and reports. We also introduce you to our Google Map integration as well as our vision risk assessment tool. And then we participate in the afternoon in a very interactive process. It's how software gets developed, but we take it out into the classroom to get feedback and to get some ideas generated that all the participants vote on. And then the top ideas get pushed onto our product owner development team to be discussed and considered for development. And the last one in Olympia in South Bay, one report that we had was in the top 4. We were able to get that report created in just over a week and get that out to the system. So these ideas, if it comes from a regional conference like this, everybody in the system benefits. So it was very worthwhile, and it's been very successful for us. So if you are interested, and I'm going to go ahead and launch that next question. If you are interested in learning more about hosting a regional training conference, Casey, our training coordinator, may give you a call. And those of you that have participated with us before and have responded to this poll, if I could just indulge you to respond one more time. If you're interested in learning more about the regional training conferences, we've got that poll launched right now. And again, this is no obligation, and we're not going to send you spam or contact you all the time. If you are interested in maybe hosting one, and if you are a host, your department does get some discounts as far as participation. I'll give it a few more seconds. And we'll close it in 10. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Last chance to vote. Go ahead and click it. And we'll go ahead and close it. Okay, so we've got a few that are interested in learning a little bit more about maybe hosting one. And certainly, this doesn't preclude you from certainly attending one. So thank you for that. And on-site, if you're interested more about on-site specific to your department or neighboring departments that could join you in offsetting some of the costs, I'm going to launch that real fast. If you could take the time to vote on this. We'll keep it open for another few seconds, 10 seconds. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Last chance to vote. Go ahead and click if you would. All right. Okay. Thank you for those of you that responded. Appreciate that. And lastly, for this segment of questions, would you like to learn more about virtual training for your department? So essentially, the format's similar to what we're doing here for Virtual Thursday, but customized specifically both in time period and in content for your department's needs. Okay, we'll close it in 10 seconds. In 5. All right, last chance to vote, everybody. Press the button there, click on it, and we'll close it. Okay, so we've got a few more here that are interested in some virtual training. So it's very likely Casey will either be giving you a call or an email just to get some more information and answer any questions that you might have as well. So thank you all for participating in these questions. Really appreciate it. All right, moving on. Here's where our upcoming training is going to be at. So if you're anywhere in the neighborhood and you're interested, Casey can give you the information. We also have it on eventbrite.com. If you do a search for emergency reporting in these states, you'll be able to see even more details about the costs and the content of the conferences. It really summarizes what I just went over, but you can take extra time to study it. Next month, or later this month, wow, we're in February already. Later this month, we've got Leland, North Carolina on the book. So if you're in this area, we're looking to fill seats here, and we'd love to see you there. Again, lovely North Carolina that will be thawed out by the time we get there, right, North Carolina? March, we've got Golden, Colorado, home of Coors Brewery, and looking forward to that event at the end of March. they're going to be hosting some great customers out there in Colorado. They're going to be hosting it in Golden. We got Yakima back in Washington State in April. And lunch is, with our new format that we're doing for the regional training conferences, lunch is provided every day of the session, so we can network and get to know each other better and answer questions in a casual lunch environment. Morris County out in May, and I know they'll be thought out by then. All right. Some of our latest system features. I mentioned this last week, and when we get into the incidents module, I will demonstrate it, but we have a new way to email outside of the system in the event that a report is incomplete or you want to make it incomplete because you're doing a quality assurance check on it, and you can send it to the report writer and it'll go out to their email that you've built into the system, or you can manually type in an email there in that field and let them know what needs to be changed or updated into that report. It's a brand new feature, one of many coming down the pike, but this has been a request by many of our customers to be able to notify outside of just the system or the welcome page when you've got an incomplete report that needs to be finished up. So we'll demonstrate that because we're going to go through the incident module in depth today. The next feature is something rolling out. You're going to get a sneak peek today. It is our analytics module. We are going to be rolling this out here very, very soon. I've been told in a matter of weeks. And we do have some customers, and you may be one of them, that's beta testing this right now. I'm going to toggle out and show you exactly what this is and just give you a little teaser preview. This is going to be one of those things that's going to be like a movie trailer that you can't wait to see the movie. So let me move that and show you briefly what it looks like. Bring this over. So what this allows you to do is, at a glance, to be able to see the performance of your organization based on NFPA standards. Now, the NFPA standard, the way I remember it for 1710 is 48, 48, 90. So you want the first engine company, and this is for fire calls only. These are only going to be 100 series calls. I'll show you EMS momentarily. But the fire series call, the 100 series in the NFIRS coding, it's going to calculate by default the NFPA standard of 48, 48, 10. So what that is I take it all the way out, and you've got first arriving unit in 4 minutes, full alarm in 8 minutes, first BLS unit or basic life support unit in 4 minutes, and advanced life support within 8 minutes, 90% of the time. It's a very difficult standard to meet. I would venture to say many, many departments do not. I know mine was close, but we didn't quite meet it spot on, the standard. But that's okay, because what you're able to do is adjust those compliance settings. And I'm going to show you an example of what you can do. You can go into the settings panel. It defaults to the NFPA 1710 option 1, but I want to change this to first full alarm assignment within 9 minutes. We want a compliance of, say, 80%, and we want a minimum people on the scene of, say, and I don't know if your department has the luxury of always having 4 people on the scene, or 4 people per truck all the time. I'm going to put it at 3. I'm going to apply it. And again, this is just a teaser, but you can see now our compliance is much, much better. The green is good. The red is the gap. Total incidents at the top. The green squiggly line going across with the dark green dots are the 80% mark to hit. So ideally, the green would touch the dark green and you'd be in compliance. I'll show you another feature here just momentarily, but here on the actual incidents, we've got, let's take a look. You've got single incidents, okay, number of apparatus, what alarm, the dispatch, earliest unit en route, first full alarm arrival, and it was 12 minutes, so it just missed it. So is it compliant? No, but they had, and then you may see when you're looking at this that everything's green, but this says no. Typically what we found is that you have to have, especially with EMS, and I'll go to that, you've got to have the certifications, EMS certifications built in. Here it's simply, could be just alarm response, or it could be the number of people on each truck. But bottom line is you've got your times and you've got whether or not the incident itself was compliant. So what you also can do is, say you want to look back at 2013. You click at 2013, the bar. It's going to drill down to. It's going to drill down to the days of the month. You can then. I'm sorry. I went one step ahead. My apologies. This is the months. That's why there's only 12. So you go from year to month, and then we want to go to the days of the month. Back. There we go. Now we've got all the days of December and quite a few pretty consistent compliance. Total number of incidents is the top of the bar. Okay. And we've got the ability even to go in deeper on a day with multiple incidents. So you're basically just zooming in, drilling down all the way down to now by hour. So your key is going to be down at the bottom of the grid. When you've got 1 to 12, you're in months. When you got the hours, you're in the days. And when you see up to 23 to 24 hour period. And then follow your way back out. You take the breadcrumbs and go back. There was this December 7th. I'm going to go back out to December the entire month, and then back out to December 2013. You can do sliders over here on the far left. So say I want to adjust the response time up to 10 minutes, for example. Then it redraws the graph. It shows me my compliance. I can adjust compliance. And NFPA 10 certainly is the national standard, but I know each jurisdiction is going to have its different requirements, and you can adjust those here. Let me take a quick look at the EMS to show you that. So here it talks about turnout time. So we'll go with 1 minute 30. Travel time of 5 minutes. 5 minutes on the scene. We want a compliance of 90%. We'll keep that. And the minimum EMTB staffing, this reflects back into your administration module on the personnel list for their EMS certifications. So when I apply this, I want to show you something. This is what we discovered the other day. Nothing's compliant, but if you look, many incidents actually are. The reason it's not is because it's looking back on the list. So this department has to make sure that all of their personnel has their certifications, EMS certifications in the system. So it's giving you kind of a glimpse on how all of these modules interconnect, and it puts it out in a very excellent user interface and very graphical, very GUI, very click and point and drill down instead of having a lot of text. So let me, and there's some important filters I wanted to mention too. You can filter by stations, by zones, population density. This is a particularly important filter, as is this filter. Let me show you that. I'm not so concerned about my response time if I'm going code 2 or no lights and sirens. So I'm going to go and knock these out and go with only lights and sirens. I'm going to save that. And here, I can remove different types of calls that I don't want applied into this. But in this case, because they're all drawing from the 300 series, I'm going to go ahead and keep it. But say I wanted to, knock out lock-ins, search for lost people, I can save that, and it's going to redraw. Now, keep in mind, as I redraw it, it's because of the number of people that are listed as at least EMT basics. I'm here into the 2013 by month. Now I'm going into December. I'll give it a chance to redraw. It's analyzing a lot of data, so it takes a little bit to redraw. So let's give it a second to go back. And we now have, I think we have a handful of beta testers testing this now. We expect it to roll out here within the next month or so. There we go. So that's the day. I look up here, it's December 31st, so the last day of the year, the EMS calls that I ran. You can also download your data directly from this into Excel. You can select your compliance model here. We've got some ones we've saved that are customized for the organization. So that's a little bit of a sneak peek into our upcoming analytics module. More details, once it's released, more details will come out, including availability, cost, and all of that. But it's a pretty awesome tool for seeing how well you're serving the community. And again, it uses the NFPA 1710, 1720 as its foundation, but you're not limited to it because you can customize all of the compliance fields to meet your organization. So any questions on this? I'm learning it too. It's brand new to us trainers, so I'm learning it, but I'm very excited to be able to master this and get out there and teach everybody. Okay, and seeing no questions, we'll go ahead and close out. I'd like to thank our Director of Support, Bob Burton, as well as the Yakima Fire Department for allowing us to take a peek into their account today. We really appreciate it. This is a live account with actual data. Again, it's in the beta testing, so some fields, like I talked about, still need to be filled in and completed, but this gives you an idea of what this tool is going to be. All right, hats off to our the product owner, Lindsay, and our development team for putting something pretty neat together. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close out here, log out of there. All right, moving along. All right, like I mentioned, 1710, 1720, fully dynamic. I love the visual. I'm very much a visual learner and like the images and graphics. That's why I love our mapping, Google Maps integration on here. It's so nice to see it. After being in the field for so long, it's always that hands-on kind of sense of looking exactly what you need. And I think this tool does a nice job at it. And we already took a peek, so very customizable. Always, to find the latest info, you want to click on the support button, and we'll do that once we go back out into the account. But a lot of times, just so you know, at the top of the page, the system notifications, they appear for 2 weeks at a time. You can, of course, close it at any time you see it after you've viewed it. But you can, there was something there like, hey, I wanted to join today's virtual Thursday, and I can't find the link. If you go to the support button, click it, you'll see the orange hyperlinks, and you'll be able to click on, within the last 6 months, all of the system notifications that are there, including the announcements of Virtual Thursday, and I'll show you that once we jump over. Of course, our user voice page, feedback.emergencyreporting.com. I've been doing some training online recently, and I've always told everybody, when you bookmark it, bookmark 2 tabs when you go in at work. Bookmark your ER login page, and this has another tab, because this is where you're going to be finding the knowledge base articles and how to get the most out of the system, as well as your ability to request different features that you'd like to see. So user voice is your voice in our system. So really take advantage of it. We're getting a lot of wonderful feedback, and I'll toggle over to the live page of it and show you that we're getting some terrific features, and our development team is working hard at implementing some of the top features right now as we speak. As always, we welcome our newest family members to the ER world, and we've got Rowe Fire Department in Massachusetts. I hope that's the right. Yeah, ME is Maine. I got to get my postal codes right, abbreviations right. City of Whitewright Fire Department in Texas, Fletcher Volunteer Fire Department in Oklahoma, Undercliff Volunteer Fire Company in Pennsylvania, Southwest Fire Department in Alabama, Bergenfield in New Jersey, Galena in Illinois, and joining our huge family in Colorado, Laramie County Fire District number 3. So welcome to all of those new departments. We're really great to have you on board, and they joined us all within the last week since our last visit here on the Virtual Thursday. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to go page by page as quickly as we possibly can in the time allotted of an incident report. We're going to do a complex fire incident. I'm going to show you the expanding sections and pages that occur based on the type of incident you're going to be filling out. We're also going to look into the EPCR that we've got in our system for patient records. I'll give you a quick NFIRS background, and I'm also going to show you, because this ties in with the brand new casualty report that we have in our system, how to document injuries and exposures within the incident report, and then your ability to pull a report on that to get you started for like ICA, and if you have a state workman's comp, and to have a report at the end of the year or end of the month, whatever time period for your for your bosses and your governing boards to see and have very good information on. We'll also talk about custom fields, how to use those, points in payroll in an incident, and then we'll have an opportunity to do some best practices as well. All right, we're going to get started. Any questions so far? All right. All right, so here we are in the account. But before we get started, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on NFIRS. It came from, and I'm going to move over and show you the paper form. Some of you may have used this before, and I can see how very tedious it is. And this kind of goes along with our concept of records keeping versus records management. You can keep a whole slew of records if you've got the paper forms and fill out the paper forms and the tedious process of doing this. Let me clear this out so you can see it. There we go. So everything you see here in this form, and I'll go slow so it doesn't, there we go. These are all of the various sections within our NFIRS reporting documentation online. So what you're doing is you're completing a report like this, except it's completely electronic and much more user-friendly. There's a lot less to sift through because our dynamic pages will only open up, the different modules will only open up if that call, if the type of call is relevant to that module. So you're not spending time having to scroll through. And in this case, we've got, let's see, 17 pages roughly worth of reporting to do. You certainly won't have 17 pages in our system of handwritten reports. It's going to be a much more streamlined, fast process. But this is where it's all driven from. All the electronic input comes from these forms to meet NFIRS requirements. NFIRS started out in there was a version, multiple versions, but the impetus came from the 1972 document America Burning. I'm sure many of us in the fire service are aware of that kind of landmark white paper about what's going on in the fire service in the United States and the effect fires are having on our communities. One of the components was the ability to create a national fire data system. So the United States Fire Administration, upon its creation, was then mandated by law to collect that data. It relies on departments and states to supply that information, but it has been Congress assigned them and legally the responsibility of collecting that data. So NFIRS 4.1, one of the later versions, was limited only to fire data or fire incidents. Then we've got NFIRS 5, which is the current version, and it's an all-incident system. So EMS, hazmat, technical rescue, and it has a series of codes that allow for accurate, reliable, and easy data collection and entry. And we want that data to be collectible, reportable, and usable. And then another key component, and this is, I think, where NFIRS really shines, especially when we think about NEMSIS sometimes and the variations that each state makes, is that it is uniform. So the NFIRS module, if you were to go from a department here in Arizona to Colorado or to North Carolina, the NFIRS standard is the same. It is truly a national uniform record collecting platform. It's modular in design, so we've got different modules such as structure fire, wildland, arson, etc. It can be used by one station departments all the way up to giant municipalities. It also collects behavioral info, for fires such as the arson or juvenile fire setter. The addresses, you're probably, and you may have or may not have wondered why the address is separated by the address number, the location, north, south, east, west, and the actual address, and then even the street name is separated. That's so it can be sorted and queried by databases and computers much more easily. You can also log property and contents, property loss, contents loss, and missing fields are not lumped into just default code values. If it's a null field or a blank field, it doesn't get rejected from the system. There's 11 modules or forms within NFIRS 5.0. Those are the paper example I showed you earlier. And the basic module, one of the things I wanted to mention when we get going here, and we might as well get started on that incident. So we go to create a new incident here. One of the things about the basic module the basic info, these 5 pages of basic info, is that there's been always some question, well, incident type, well, what if I go to a hazmat call that has a fire that has patients? NFIRS states that if you have if an incident involves multiple codes, again, they only expect you to put in one code, you default to the lowest code of what happens. So for example, let me pull the list up here and show you exactly what I mean. So say you had a hazmat call with patients and fire involvement. So what you want to do is you're going to default down to the 100 series fire if fire were involved. Likewise, if it's just hazmat with like a BLEVE but no fire, and you had some patients, you would drop down to the 200 series. So the lowest, I should say, the lowest number has the highest priority. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and make this a basic building fire. Whoops, make that 111. And you can click save here, but it wants me to put in all the other info first. So let's do that. All right, red are required fields as always in our system. Black is optional. We've got the ability to give or receive aid and document that here. And the other aspect I wanted to show you here that I think is pretty darn cool is that hazmat release. Many of you probably think, well, hazmat, if it's a hazmat call, I'm going to put some documentation here. If it's not hazmat, I don't need to. Well, take a look at the categories. And these are all NFIRS codes. It's pretty useful and pretty much common incidents, or fairly common incidents that we all respond on, like a natural gas leak, propane gas. So keep in mind, instead of checking none on some of the calls that you go to, someone's left the burners off on the stove, but the gas was left on, that's a natural gas leak. All right. And again, if you didn't have to evacuate or any other hazmat actions or the deployment of the hazmat team, this is a category you want to release. And this is data that NFIRS does collect. And you can see some of the other categories. You've got someone drives away from a pump at a gas station and a little bit of fuel spills. They call you to come and absorb it. That definitely applies here. Then you've got the ability to go to the full-on hazmat scene down at the bottom. Anything greater than or equal to 55-gallon spill becomes a reportable incident, and then you'll be able to open up the hazmat module and fill in more details about what chemicals were involved. Okay, that's basic info 1. Super straightforward. Any questions on it as I move on to the second page? Okay, now the structure fire module, you can see when I selected structure fire, I've got the basic fire module and the structure fire module. The structure fire module is for all structure fires that extend beyond a non-combustible container. So, for example, you've got a barbecue fire in the backyard and it flared up. Someone called because they see smoke and flames coming from the backyard, and you get there and it's just the barbecue. It didn't extend beyond a non-combustible container, so the incident type that you would choose would be one that would not open up this structure fire. Okay, now here on Basic 2, there's a lot of radio buttons to choose from, and this PCR is applicable for just about any call. If I select yes, and this is not dependent on the NFIRS code, but if it's just an EMS call, you know that you're in the 300 series of calls. That's why NFIRS is an all-incident reporting system, not just fire. If you have civilian casualties, and that doesn't mean a casualty does not necessarily mean a fatality, it can be an injury. And also in fire service, if there was an injury, and not only an injury, but say for instance that it was an EMS call and there was a bodily fluid splash, blood got splashed, or a needle stick, you can document that here as well. And that's one of the things I wanted to show you today as part of our objectives. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these on so you can see how, as I turn them on, it's going to open up more modules, more sections that I have to fill in. Okay. Closed building, detectors were present, no automatic extinguisher, and then if I select intentional or if I select under investigation, it will also open up my arson module. So let me go ahead and save this, and you can see how at the top of the screen, it's going to expand the various sections that you have to fill out. It knows, based on the radio buttons I selected, that these are going to be, there's at least some mandatory information for NFIRS that I have to fill out based on the questions that I've answered here. So you can see I've got the ability now to report civilian, fire casualties, EMS if we had an EMS patients on the scene that needed treatment, and then people involved. And people involved can be the owner, they're not necessarily a casualty, and they're certainly not they're not a transport or received emergency medical care on the scene, but it may be someone who's come up to you. You get onto the fire ground and they say, I saw somebody running away from this, somebody in a red car just drove away. You might want to collect that information here so that your investigators can go back and have that information. That's the place to do it, and that's where you when you select, I wish to record information about people involved. It's not that they were involved in the incident per se. It's just they may have provided you some information, or they helped rescue, Good Samaritans on an EMS call, or they pulled somebody from a burning vehicle. You want to get that information to maybe recognize them later or thank them, or like I said, for the investigators to follow up with. Those are the ones that expanded. So let's move forward, and I'm going to turn some off so we are able to at least complete this report. And you can see now it's going to bring it down to a few less fields. Let me just, I know Mark's probably, Mark Vodopich, our support tech, has probably been answering questions. I want to make sure we're good. Okay, good. No questions so far. I have a feeling you guys are pretty comfortable with this module, but I did, the key today of some of the key objectives are to be able to give you some nuances with it and some subtleties that you may or may not know. So moving forward. So location type. One thing on this field is you do have the ability for occupancies. If you've built your occupancy module to reflect the businesses in your jurisdiction, or you can even put in, if you creatively put in frequent flyer addresses, so you don't have to always fill in all of that information. And out in our user voice, that is one of our top requests, is to be able to log patients that we respond to frequently, and be able to fill all that information, including patient name and age and all of that. We're just trying to get clarity with the HIPAA laws and things like that, that this is indeed something we can store and say, legally store within our system. But businesses, absolutely. And you could put in residential addresses here under a new category called residence. So at least this part gets filled. So say we've got in the McAvoy Oil Company, we've got it. That's where the incident was. I click use, and it autofills all the things here in the addresses that I need. If I had a zone applied to it, actually the zone's different here, so we'll assign a zone to it, and I made that a required field. And it knows, because I built into the occupancy module, it's property use, it will automatically fill this. So anything we can do to make your lives faster, we want to do that. That's a lot of what's driving us, is to make the whole user interface, user experience positive and relatively quick. Because I know some of our simpler calls, like lift assist or some public service calls, it takes as much time or more to do the report than it does to actually do the incident. And so if we can find even seconds here to shave off time, we're working towards that, and analyzing each page and finding ways to interconnect our modules. So things like this can happen with a click or two. That's basic info 3. Got all the required fields except for one, street address. I can remove this occupancy 2 and type in anything. Now, if you've got a CAD interface, this all populates. This is optional when the fire was controlled. You can put that in here. The top section here, personnel involved but not on an apparatus, this is where I've used in the past, and you may have some other creative uses for it, but if you have in your organization people that respond POV or in their privately owned or personally owned vehicle, you can put that here, because it's not really an apparatus. But you can also, I've seen some departments where when you add an apparatus, one of the drop downs is POV. So it's really your choice how you want to manage that. Here we've got engine 1 responding. Autofills the type because I built that into the administration module under apparatus. We're going lights and sirens. Some shortcuts. It's today. Incident time. The dispatch time was 0900, say. And one thing you always want to do if you're manually entering this data, if you're not having a CAD interface or a CAD link where the times automatically populate, if you're not doing it, talk with the decision makers. You absolutely want to get the seconds involved, or you could shortchange yourself, or you could in some instances make yourself look better than you actually are, because if this call goes out at, say, 9 o'clock and 1 second, and I get on scene I get on scene here at 9:03, oh, let's go realistic, 6 and 59 seconds, I actually had a 7-minute or 8-minute response, 7-minute response. But if I didn't have the seconds there, it would show a 6-minute response. And it works the other way too. If this were 59 seconds and I put in here 01, it looks like a 6-minute response when in reality it was 5 minutes and 1 second, 5 minutes and 2 seconds. So I'm shortchanging myself a good response time. I imagine most of you are doing that, but I have encountered organizations where they don't enter seconds and you lose accuracy. So let me go ahead and just enter some times here. One thing I've done, and it's a shortcut, you can fill times all the way across the board. Click X out the ones that you're not using, and then all you have to do instead of filling out each time field individually is you knock it down by 1. You don't have to put in the hours, but you can put in this. So the alarm and was that time dispatched right at the same time, let's say, en route at 02:03, arrived at 06:59. Moving down to the cleared scene time, 9:40. And you may or may not log that. It's not a required one by NFIRS. And then we're back in full service. A lot of times the cleared scene and in service is the same, but they had to go back and get some fuel or some water. So it was a little bit later when they were back in full service. And I've got all my times. So it goes pretty quickly, and I'm sure you're familiar, but I'll remind that in case those of you aren't, you want to go tab. Instead of clicking on each one, you can tab each field, or shift tab takes you backwards. So for example, here, if I tab over, or shift tab, I go backwards. So use that as your friend to not always have to go after the mouse to click around and enter times. Okay, here's the other thing. If I've built a roster, which I don't believe I have for this, but let's just see if I have. Oh, I did. Nice. Okay, better than I thought. I created a roster earlier today. In fact, now I remember because we were doing some online training with another customer. And so I filled this. I created a roster for today, for this time period, for this engine. If I've done that, it will automatically fill those people. If I haven't created a roster, but I've got a list of 40, 50 people in my department, that's a lot to scroll through. So we're going to drill it down. This is our new personnel picker. All you need to do is you can go by rank, but often it's really your shift, A shift, and my station. So now I've got a much more manageable list to add to the unit. So I'm going to add Larry over to that. And we'll go ahead and add Richard as well. Any questions so far? Let me toggle out to the question, see if we've got anything. So far, so good. Okay. Piece of cake. So take advantage of the tools, especially the drill downs here, and then running through fast on entering the times. All right, this is basic info 4. I'm just going to do a single apparatus, but I could, instead of having to back out, I can go save and add another apparatus. It saves this one and gives me a new field to enter another one. This takes me out. That was the new apparatus I just created. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And I know we had multiple units on this scene, but we're going to just keep it to 1 for time's sake here. Basic info 5, the last of the 5 basic pages, and 911 response, and this is on all the pages. So because this is a fire call and we did not have an EMS, well, we did, but we had, say, where's my burns? We had a burn victim. We can put that in here, and then the primary action. And really, I take that back, guys. My bad. This is for the entire incident, so it's not necessarily directly related to whatever patients we have. It's how the call went out. And this was a fire call, so EMS is really not applicable for this overall incident, even though we had a patient from it. I hope that makes sense. So I apologize for that. I goofed on that. Primary action taken. You've got your list, and this was a fire call, so there were going to be some. There's usually more than one. Extinguishment by fire service personnel. Then I know 12 is salvage and overhaul. If I click save, it'll populate the description right next to it. And it only has spaces for 3, even though you have, chances are you've done more. So what you want to focus on are the key functions that you performed on that scene, the key functions that you performed. So we did some salvage. We did, let's see, And we did some search and rescue. Here is also where you put in, and this is reportable and something that we can generate reports on for you, your property loss, content loss, and then the pre-incident value, so you can estimate potential of what could have happened on the scene had it not been expertly contained by your crews. So that covers the basic module. I know we're down to 15 minutes or so, so I'm gonna pick up the pace just slightly. Any questions on basic? None? Very good. You guys are pros on this one. Here's our property details for Fire 1. And again, in lieu of that paper form I showed you, now because we know this was a fire call, this is a required module. So we've had one residential living unit. It wasn't an apartment. One building involved, and no acres burned outside. No on-site materials. Area of the fire origin, it's going to give you that pop-up list. And so another incredible time feature is that you don't have to cross-check a list of all of these. You can look at it and click directly on the ones that are applicable. So area, let's go with bedroom. Included our jail or prison. Interesting. Okay. Heat source. And I know we're not going to go into a description of all these different categories, but I'm just going to plug some in that are applicable for kind of our mock fire here, just so we can get through the pages. You can click save so you can see what I chose. This one doesn't show. Expand out. Factor contributing to. So I'm filling out the required fields by NFIRS. So whenever you see red and you go, why do we have to fill this out? It's a lot. It's red because we are in compliance with what NFIRS requires. So please don't be mad at us. But actually, this information is incredibly valuable, and it is part of the national data collection. And as you probably are aware too, grants are tied to our submission to the NFIRS. If we don't submit our data to NFIRS, it will preclude us from being eligible for grants. Okay, we'll look through this. So that module's good. I had equipment involved, so it's going to prompt me for some equipment. I'm going to air conditioner. I can put in the brand, and this is interesting too because I'm sure in the data collections system at the United States Fire Administration, if they're getting a lot of, like, say, GE dishwashers, I know there were some GE dishwashers, and I don't know if this was how it came to be, but if the database starts getting a lot of equipment involved in their GE dishwashers with such and such a model, it could be a red flag that maybe a recall's in order. So don't underestimate the data that you're collecting, being able to help others across the country through this reporting system. Building status, like I said, we're going to go quickly here. In normal use, 1, 0, 2000, 1. It had detectors. Again, as this is part of the statistics gathering for when you see those reports that out of so many fires in the United States in 2011, 80% had smoke detectors, but 30% of them weren't working. So we had a smoke detector, hardwire with battery, and detector failed to operate, and then the reason. So then again, this data, you think, oh, why am I putting this in? Imagine hundreds and hundreds of fires each year. Putting in this information about the detection system, they can compile those statistics and be able to report to the fire community, all of us, what's going on with smoke detectors. People, they're installed, but people are taking batteries out, they're not replacing them after 10 years, things like that, and get some pretty good info. And these fields are descriptions written by the NFIRS team. All right, this should cover, okay, fire. So here on the casualty, here's what I want to show you. So you can enter the information about the fire service casualty. we know how to enter data fields. What I want to show you is the data that you collect here can then appear in a report here. And it's a newer report that we have, and I just, as a former company officer and a battalion chief, I can't help but think this is a really useful tool, and it keeps the data stored electronically to where it can be referenced later on for a monthly or annual report. I want to show you this. It will load, please. Thank you. So we're going to go into reports. I'm going to type in casualty because I can never remember all the reports. Okay, this is 1630. The reason I know it's the right report because the 1600 series, that's our newer. We're up to that many reports in the system. So that's a newer report. I think we're like 1639 by now, so pretty new. So I want to see for the month, and I'm going to do it for a year because I can't remember which month I put it in, but say for 2000, yeah, I think I did do it for 2014. I can pick and choose only for fires. I can pick multiple, create an NFIRS 100 series code, and it will only do fire calls. Okay, so 42 types that were all in the 100 series. I'm going to go ahead and create a report. And here we go. It gives me what incident types up here at the top, the incident number, and the severity and type of injury. And again, some of this will probably be HIPAA protected. So again, you would use this with caution, but certainly internally and for moving on to get the patient, the firefighter, some medical care. You've got that initial form filled out for you if you take care of it in the incident report. So just take a quick glance at that. You can see the table there. So that's Fire Service Casualty 1, what we've had, and that was the only one we've had for this year. In the NFIRS, I think we have more for 2013, but you'll have a report that shows you all the casualty detail for incident type and range. So I think a pretty great report that they've come up with. It makes the data collection and reporting that much easier, and makes that particular module even more useful than it was before. Got a couple questions here. I bet Mark's been handling them, but let me take a quick peek. Mark's going to check for Molly on the EMS module or EMS box 5, and I'm pretty sure Molly and well, he's already answered it. Great. If you only have fire, you won't get the basic info 5, and Mark can correct me on that. Basic info 5 summarizes some EMS info. So if you're fire only, you won't have basic info 5, that page. And Mark can verify that by shooting out a quick message there. And is it good? Yes. Jason asks, is it good to save each screen before moving on to the next screen? Yes. And keep in mind, let's go back out to the report, Jason. Here, there's 3 things on our system. Soon, down the road, some of our newest modules, especially Training 3.0, there's not even this floppy disk save button anymore, because as you type each field, it auto-saves. But my recommendation, especially if you're data entering a call and you get another call and have to leave, click this save button. You can also click back or next. The back and next, don't use your browser buttons. By using next or back here, you're able to think of it as save and go next, or save and go back, or just save and stay, and it keeps you on that page. My other suggestion is, with your department and your the administration or IT team, set the auto log off for emergency reporting to like a multi-hour, 2 or 3 hours, and then if you walk away, you're not logged out of the system when you come back. And then what you want to do is your screensaver, password protect it on Windows or Apple machine, set it for 1 or 2 minutes. So if you do walk away, within a minute or two, unless someone knows your password, they can't get in and mess around with your data or your account. So that's my preference. Again, each department's going to have their own IT policies, but it just makes it to where you are when you come back from a call, you're not logged out of it and have to start over or find your report where you left off. So just a suggestion there. Hope that answers both Molly and Jason's questions. That's the fire. Each page is unique. I'm going to go through it briefly just so you can see the data that you're collecting. Injury, what took place, and did protective equipment fail? So again, wrapping it all together, if the equipment failed, what failed? And then if you've built it in your maintenance module, the equipment, you'll know the serial number, the make and the model of, say, the turnout coat failed and he got a sustained a burn to his arm. You'll you'll be able to go and see right there in the maintenance module, under equipment, under turnouts, assigned to this firefighter, exactly the piece of equipment, and be able to pull out a service and begin documentation on that as well. So it all interconnects here. All right, a lot of it's going to show reds because I didn't complete it. All right, EMS, this has gone by extremely fast. We're down to about 5 minutes. So I'm going to skip this momentarily. People involved is simply this. One page. All right, I think it's multiple pages, but, and again, this is an example of, bystander you could put in here, Good Samaritan, their information. So say you want to present them with, token of appreciation. We had in our department, by a patient's husband, she collapsed, he starts CPR, we get there, great CPR is in progress, and those scenes are pretty, got to get the patient going, especially if CPR is in progress. So we don't always, have time to write everything down. So we try and get as much information as we can, at the very least the phone number. We follow up and we can fill in all this information and then make sure we have correct information in the event that we want to honor that person, which we did in that case, and brought him into one of our board meetings to thank him for really saving his wife's life, and she survived without any deficits. So this is a place you can document that. People number 2, no, it is just a one pager. That's what I thought. So we're good to go there. Narrative, straightforward. Files, great. Those of you that do public information in your department have to, share information with the media. Tell your guys, your incident commanders, take pictures, load them here. They can send you a text message. Hey, we had a 2-car wreck on the freeway. The newspaper was on scene or TV was on scene. They're looking for pictures. Depending on how you do media releases and share information with the media, this may be your job. You can capture it here without having to have them email you the photos, especially when you're not going to share anything that would reveal the patient. I know we were even careful with license plates to make sure we asked the paper to block that out or pixelate it so people couldn't identify by looking at the article or the paper, the picture in the article, who might own it if they were ambitious enough to do a motor vehicle search on it. So obviously keeping privacy in mind, but it just makes it a great tool for public information officers here. Custom fields. All right, I'm going to touch on this. Here, this all takes place back in the administration module under custom fields. You can create them here and basically have it as a single answer response with multiple choices to pick from, or you can actually have it as a text response, and they look like this when you're in the system. Now, one thing you'll probably get from the guys as well, it was a fire call. Why do I have to deal with about an ambulance call? If it's a custom field that you put in here, it's going to appear in every single incident. So in your responses, you just simply want to have an NA, and then it's not going to apply to that call. And it just takes, you can see I can get this filled out in seconds. If there's a fall injury patient, again, we were tracking falls in our department. And if they weren't EMS, we wanted to collect that information. We can do that here. Did a firefighter write in on this call? Because you're getting reimbursed from the ambulance company, hopefully, if you're sending your crew members up on a call, especially for long transports, and then we can document that here. So it's really a place to collect data that NFIRS doesn't require, but you as an organization want to collect. And we found it to be very, very helpful in a variety of ways. Excuse me. Payroll, very straightforward. If you've activated the payroll module and you want to collect points and or pay, I've selected points only for, like, say, a volunteer department. It'll calculate based on the time the unit was on scene, or units, that it was just not quite an entire hour. So based on department criteria, you get in 1 hour per point, say. We're going to round up. Everybody gets a point, and then you can record all of this. Pay grades can be set to volunteer 0, or you can have them shown here for the different ranks if you're inclined to do that. That's an option to be able to activate this. Payroll module talks with incidents, with training, and with events. So that's why it appeared here. And you'll notice that it's required fields because those boxes are outlined in red. And when I get to the end of a report, when I go to complete it, if anything is not completed that's required, so I'm looking at some red boxes here, it's going to tell me what needs to get done. And I can click on each of these and it takes me right back to it and allows me to correct it on the spot instead of having to scroll back through, well, what was I missing? So in this case, on the custom fields, I needed to answer this. And I did, but I didn't click save. I clicked around. So that's required. And this was NA. So now that's going to turn green. I go back to complete it. And that part's gone. But I need to enter at least one patient for this incident. So we're at the top of the hour. So here's what we're going to do, guys. I'm going to schedule doing the ePCR on another virtual Thursday. We've got them scheduled through the end of February. So what I think we'll do is we'll either bump one of the current topics or we'll do it early in March to do the full-on PCR. I underestimated how long this would take to go through it the way I wanted to. So again, I apologize on the ePCR, but we will spend an entire virtual Thursday doing that ePCR. What else do I want to show you here? Yes, there is one thing I need to show you before we wrap up for today. Let me go ahead and go back out and turn off some of these so I can actually complete the report. I should turn those off and now I can complete it. Now here's what I want to show you that's brand new. Okay, I'll give you that. Equipment section is required for this heat source. Okay, so I need equipment. Should not have turned that off. That's back on. I should be good now. Please be good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and, because I have supervisor privileges, I'm going to go ahead and actually just complete it. Go back to the list. Okay, so say I'm doing a QA and I wasn't the one that did this report. One of my crew members did this report or somebody on my shift did this report. I'm going to say, well, you know, we need to get some more information here about the structure. You didn't give us enough details, or did you capture that person that, you know, came up to you and said, hey, we saw that car driving from the incident. We got to get that information in there. So I want to make this incomplete. When I make it incomplete, the person who started the report that's assigned to it and completed, and I'm going to make it incomplete. In the personnel list, I've created obviously that person, but I also have their email attached to it. It fills in the subject line automatically for me, and then I can put additional notes here. Please complete. Persons involved and add engine 2. Then all I can, or if I can still make it incomplete, click cancel, and it will show in the notifications on the welcome page. But I want this going to an email address. I want to go into him so he sees it, you know, if he's got his work email on a smartphone, whatever, because this is important. We've got to get this report done. So I'm going to send the notification. And what I want to show you next is how that appears in the email. And then we'll call it a wrap for today and answer any other questions. Rosie's got a question. I'm going to get to you just a second, Rosie. I'm going to let my email client load. And while we're doing that, Mark, thank you for that. So a question that Rosie had was, when you say you can track fall victims in the custom field, isn't this part of the NFIRS, which is public info? Does that violate HIPAA? Okay, excellent question. No, it does not violate HIPAA because when you're tracking the fall victims in the custom field, that stays internally within the department. It doesn't get exported to FEMA, any of that. And I believe, well, my Mark confirmed that by just looking at his answer. That's all I got to do is read it. Any data captured in the custom fields doesn't get exported. It stays all internally. So that custom field is for you and your department to manage data, especially something that's not being required or collected by the NFIRS modules. Okay, so last thing I want to show you is what that email looks like. So I just sent that I need this report completed. Make it so you can see it. So what I just typed in there is sent to my email from a no reply. So the person can't reply back, which is fine. And it just lets them know that you've got a complete persons involved and add engine 2 and whatever other comments you would make as the supervisor doing a QA on the report. This was something requested by by a lot of our customers, and I think just before last Thursday's virtual session, it was implemented. So in fact, my boss called me, hey, take a look at this. I'm like, oh, cool, we got to show this. So That's a new feature in here. All right, guys, I know we're past top of the hour, so I can't thank you enough for joining us today. My apologies for not being able to go through the ePCR, but now that I think about it, I think there'll be wisdom in being able to just have that as a standalone virtual Thursday. So look for that in your system notifications coming up here, but I do promise you we'll hit the ePCR at a later virtual Thursday. As always, I'll stick around for a few questions if something comes up before you guys all log off. And thank you for joining us today. Thanks for being part of the emergency reporting family. And we will see you next Thursday. We're going to be doing on February 13th, the maintenance module, requesting and documenting maintenance for apparatus and equipment. That's going to be next week's virtual Thursday. Until then, guys, be safe. Those of many of you that stated you were on the Eastern time zone, just stay warm out there. Thanks again.